Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. Here, we explore the fascinating world of science, from the mysteries of the universe to the wonders of everyday life. Sit back, relax, and let's discover something amazing together. Tonight, you are invited to look at something very familiar in a slightly different way. You are standing on Earth, a place you see every day. It can feel ordinary, predictable, even simple. But in reality, Earth is anything but simple. It is a living system, filled with quiet mysteries that often go unnoticed. At first glance, the world seems easy to understand. Trees grow, oceans move, animals live their lives. But when you pause and look a little closer, the surface begins to shift. What once seemed ordinary slowly reveals something far more complex. There are living creatures that can survive conditions that sound impossible: extreme heat, deep freezing cold, even environments with almost no oxygen. Some can repair their bodies in ways that feel almost unreal. Others can pause their life processes entirely, waiting quietly until conditions improve again. These are not rare exceptions. They are part of the natural world you already live in. And life is not just strong, it is deeply connected. Forests, for example, are not just groups of individual trees. Beneath the soil, hidden from view, roots and fungi form networks that allow trees to share nutrients and support one another. In a quiet way, a forest behaves less like a collection of separate beings and more like a single system. Even the smallest organisms play an important role. Tiny life forms, invisible to your eyes, help shape the air, the soil, and the balance of entire ecosystems. Without them, life on Earth would not exist in the way you know it. As you continue to observe, another idea begins to appear. Intelligence is not limited to humans. Some animals can solve problems, remember solutions, and even communicate in complex ways. Dolphins use unique sounds that function almost like names. Certain birds can plan ahead and use tools. These are small but powerful reminders that thinking exists in many forms. Nature itself can feel surprisingly active. There are oceans that glow softly at night because of tiny organisms producing light. There are forests that help create their own rain. There are animals that travel across vast distances using the Earth's magnetic field, sensing something you cannot feel at all. Slowly, the world begins to feel less like separate pieces and more like a connected whole, constantly moving, adjusting, and changing. And change has always been part of this story. Life on Earth has gone through dramatic shifts over billions of years. There were times when most living things disappeared during mass extinctions. And yet, life continued. It adapted, reshaped itself, and found new ways to survive. Even oxygen, the air you breathe now, was once something new. When it first appeared, it disrupted existing life and caused one of the earliest extinction events. But over time, it became essential. It is a quiet reminder that what feels stable now was once uncertain. And then, there is you. It may feel natural to think of yourself as separate from nature, simply observing it. But in truth, your body is part of the same system. You are made of trillions of cells, working together in balance. Alongside them are countless microorganisms, living with you and influencing your health in ways you may never notice. You are not outside of nature. You are part of it. If you look even deeper, beyond Earth itself, the connection becomes even more remarkable. The atoms that make up your body were once formed in ancient stars. Long before this planet existed, those stars created the elements that would one day become part of you. So in a quiet way, when you look at the night sky, you are looking at something familiar. As you move through this journey, you will discover more of these quiet truths, small details that gently change how you see the world. You will explore how life adapts, how it connects, and how it continues, even through uncertainty. There is nothing you need to remember. Just listen, and let the ideas settle. Because sometimes, simply noticing is enough to make the world feel new again. Now, as you gently settle into this world, you begin to notice something unusual. Life, in all its forms, does not always follow the rules you might expect. In fact, some of it seems to quietly ignore them altogether. Imagine drifting through the ocean, where the light fades and the water grows still. Here, you encounter a small, delicate creature, a jellyfish known as Turritopsis dawni. At first glance, it seems fragile, almost temporary. But hidden within its simple body is something extraordinary. When faced with stress or injury, it can reverse its life cycle, returning to an earlier stage of development, almost as if it were beginning again. Not immortal in the way stories might suggest, but capable of repeating its life in a way that feels strangely close. It does not rush. It does not struggle. It simply resets. And then, if you look even closer, beyond what your eyes can see, you find something even more resilient. Tiny organisms called tardigrades, sometimes known as water bears, live almost everywhere. In soil, in moss, in drops of water you might never notice. They are nearly microscopic, yet their abilities are astonishing. They can survive extreme cold, intense heat, high radiation, and even the vacuum of space. When conditions become too harsh, they dry themselves into a nearly lifeless state, waiting quietly until the environment becomes safe again. They do not fight their surroundings. They endure them. And then there are creatures that seem to repair themselves with quiet patience. A starfish, for example, can regrow lost limbs. In some cases, even a single arm can regenerate into an entirely new individual. There is no urgency, no visible effort, just a slow, steady process of rebuilding. Life, it seems, is not as fixed as it appears. As you move through these examples, a pattern begins to form. Survival is not always about strength or speed. Sometimes, it is about flexibility, the ability to change, adapt, and respond in ways that are almost unimaginable. Consider certain species of fish that can change their sex during their lifetime. This is not random, but a response to their environment. If a group lacks a dominant female or male, one individual may shift, ensuring the survival of the group. It is a quiet, biological adjustment. No hesitation, no confusion, just a natural response to what is needed. Or imagine a frog in a cold environment, where temperatures drop far below freezing. Instead of escaping, it allows its body to freeze. Its heart stops. Its breathing pauses. Ice forms within its tissues. And yet, when warmth returns, it slowly comes back to life, as if waking from a deep, frozen sleep. It is not dramatic. It is simply how it survives. In the icy waters of the polar regions, certain fish carry proteins in their blood that act like natural antifreeze. These proteins prevent ice crystals from forming inside their bodies, allowing them to live in temperatures that would be fatal to most other creatures. Their existence feels quiet and steady, adapted perfectly to a world of cold and stillness. The more you observe, the clearer it becomes. Life is not rigid. It does not follow a single path. Instead, it adjusts, reshapes, and finds ways to continue, again and again. And perhaps what is most surprising is how calm these processes are. There is no drama, no visible struggle. Just slow, precise changes happening over time, guided by the quiet logic of survival. If you pause for a moment, you might begin to sense a deeper idea beneath all of this. Life is not trying to be perfect. It is simply trying to continue. Sometimes that means becoming stronger. Sometimes it means becoming more flexible. And sometimes it means doing something that seems almost impossible, like pausing, waiting, or even starting over. In a way, it is not so different from the natural rhythms you experience yourself. Rest and activity, change and stillness, growth and recovery. Nature, it seems, has been practicing these patterns for far longer than you can imagine. As you drift through this quiet understanding, you may start to feel a sense of calm curiosity. The world is not as fragile as it sometimes appears. It is resilient, adaptable, and quietly creative in its solutions. And yet, this is only one part of the story. Because beyond survival and adaptation, there is another layer, something less obvious, but just as fascinating. A kind of intelligence, not always visible, but present in unexpected places. And as you continue, you may begin to notice it, slowly, gently, revealing itself in ways you might not expect. As you continue moving gently through the natural world, something begins to shift in your understanding. Until now, you may have thought of intelligence as something rare, something mostly human. But the deeper you look, the more that idea begins to soften. Intelligence, it turns out, does not always look the way you expect. Imagine standing quietly in a forest at dusk. The air is still, and somewhere nearby, a crow watches from a branch. At first, it seems like any other bird, dark feathers, sharp eyes, calm and observant. But if you stay long enough, you begin to notice something more. Crows are capable of solving problems in ways that suggest planning and reasoning. In controlled studies, they have been seen bending wires into hooks to retrieve food, or dropping nuts onto roads so passing cars can crack them open. They remember faces, human faces, and can recognize individuals who have treated them kindly or poorly. There is no rush in their actions. Just quiet thought, followed by careful movement. And they are not alone. Parrots, too, have shown an ability to understand patterns, mimic sounds with intention, and even associate words with meaning. Some have demonstrated the ability to count or identify shapes and colors. It is not language in the human sense, but it is not random either. It exists somewhere in between, structured, aware, and quietly impressive. Then you turn your attention to the ocean. Beneath the surface, where sound travels farther than sight, dolphins move through the water with a kind of fluid awareness. They communicate using a wide range of clicks and whistles. But what makes this especially interesting is that each dolphin appears to have a unique signature sound, something like a name. When one dolphin calls out, others can recognize who is speaking. It is a simple idea, but also a profound one. Identity, recognition, and communication, all existing beneath the surface of the sea. If you pause here, you might begin to feel a quiet realization forming. Intelligence is not a single thing. It is not a straight line from simple to complex. Instead, it appears in many forms, shaped by the needs of each species and environment. And sometimes, it is not just individual intelligence that matters, but collective behavior. Imagine now a group of ants moving across the forest floor. Individually, each ant is quite simple. It follows basic rules, responding to chemical signals and environmental cues. But together, something remarkable happens. When faced with a gap, some species of ants can form living bridges using their own bodies. They link together, creating a path for others to cross. No single ant is in charge. There is no central plan. And yet, the result is organized, efficient, and purposeful. It is a kind of shared intelligence, emerging not from one mind, but from many small actions working together. A similar pattern appears in larger animals as well. Consider wolves moving through a landscape. They are often seen as hunters, but their role is much broader than that. By controlling the population of prey animals, such as deer, they indirectly shape the environment. When prey numbers decrease, vegetation has a chance to recover. Rivers stabilize, plant life returns, and other species begin to thrive. This effect has been observed in places like Yellowstone National Park, where the reintroduction of wolves led to widespread ecological changes. It is sometimes called a trophic cascade, a chain reaction that begins with a single species but extends throughout the entire ecosystem. The wolves are not aware of this larger impact. They are simply living their lives. And yet, their behavior influences the shape of the land itself. It is a quiet reminder that actions, no matter how small, can have far-reaching effects. As you take in these examples, the idea of intelligence begins to feel broader, more flexible. It is not just about thinking or reasoning in a human way. It is about responding to the world, adapting to challenges, and interacting with others, whether through sound, movement, or even simple signals. And perhaps there is something calming in that, because it suggests that intelligence is not something you need to define too narrowly. It exists in many forms, each one suited to its own environment, each one quietly effective in its own way. You might even begin to notice echoes of this in your own experience. Moments where you act without overthinking. Times when cooperation feels natural. Situations where solutions appear gradually, through small steps rather than sudden insight. Nature has been practicing these patterns for a very long time. There is no urgency in it. No need to rush toward an answer. Just a steady process of observing, adjusting, and responding. And as you continue to explore, another layer begins to reveal itself. Because intelligence and behavior are not isolated. They are part of something larger, a web of connections that links all living things together. A network, mostly hidden, but always present. And as you move forward, you may begin to sense it, quietly waiting beneath the surface. As you continue this quiet journey, you begin to notice something even deeper than survival or intelligence. Beneath all the movement, beneath all the individual lives, there is a sense of connection, subtle, often invisible, but always present. Nothing in nature truly exists alone. Imagine yourself once again in a forest. The air is cool, the light soft, filtered through layers of leaves above you. At first, everything seems still. Trees stand in place, silent and unmoving. But if you shift your attention, if you imagine what lies just beneath the soil, the picture begins to change. Underground, hidden from sight, there is a vast network of fungal threads, known as mycorrhizal fungi. These threads connect the roots of different trees, sometimes even across large distances. Through this network, trees can exchange nutrients, share resources, and even send chemical signals. A tree that is struggling, perhaps due to lack of sunlight or disease, can receive support from others nearby. Older, stronger trees sometimes pass nutrients to younger ones, helping them grow. It is not cooperation in the human sense, but it is something close, a quiet system of support that keeps the forest stable. Some scientists have even referred to this as the wood wide web, a natural network that allows communication and connection between plants. Of course, not everything about this system is fully understood. Researchers continue to study how much of this interaction is intentional, how much is simply a byproduct of shared systems. But what is clear is that the forest is not just a collection of individuals. It behaves, in many ways, like a single, connected organism. If you pause here, you may begin to sense a gentle shift in perspective. A tree is not just a tree. It is part of something larger. And this idea extends far beyond forests. Consider something as simple as lichen, a quiet presence on rocks, tree bark, and old surfaces. At a glance, it may look like a single organism, but in reality, it is a partnership. Lichen is formed by a fungus and an alga, or sometimes a cyanobacterium, living together in close cooperation. The fungus provides structure and protection. The alga produces food through photosynthesis. Neither could survive in quite the same way alone, but together, they form something stable and enduring. It is a reminder that survival is not always about independence. Sometimes, it is about partnership. As you move through this idea, you begin to notice that these relationships appear everywhere. In oceans, coral reefs depend on tiny algae living inside their tissues. On land, plants rely on insects for pollination. Animals depend on plants for food, and plants depend on animals in return. This creates what you might know as a food chain, or more accurately, a food web. Not a simple line, but a complex network of relationships, where each part influences the others. If one part changes, the effects can ripple outward. A decrease in one species might lead to the increase of another. The loss of a predator can affect plant growth. The disappearance of a small organism can disrupt an entire ecosystem. It is a delicate balance, not fragile in the sense of easily broken, but sensitive, always adjusting. And yet, there is also resilience within this system. When changes occur, ecosystems often find ways to adapt. New relationships form. Different species take on new roles. It is not always smooth, and not always immediate, but the system continues. If you take a moment here, you might begin to feel something calming in this idea. Life is not isolated. It is supported by connections, shaped by relationships, and sustained by balance. Even in your own life, there are echoes of this pattern, connections you rely on, often without thinking. Systems that support you quietly, in the background. Nature has been doing this for far longer. There is no central control, no single guiding force. Just countless interactions, happening slowly, continuously, forming a system that is both complex and stable. And perhaps the most interesting part is that much of this remains unseen. The most important connections are often the ones you cannot observe directly. They happen beneath the surface, quietly maintaining the balance of life. As you sit with this thought, the world may begin to feel different, not as a collection of separate things, but as a web of relationships, gently holding everything together. And yet, this is still not the full picture. Because beyond these connections, beyond the living networks, there are also the forces of nature itself, phenomena that shape the planet in ways that can feel almost magical. Light appearing in dark waters, forests creating their own rain, landscapes transforming over time. And as you continue, you may begin to notice these quiet wonders, slowly unfolding around you. As you continue drifting through this quiet exploration, you begin to notice something gently shifting once again. Beyond living creatures and their connections, the planet itself seems to participate in something larger. Patterns and phenomena that feel almost alive in their rhythm. Earth is not still. It moves, responds, and changes in ways that are both subtle and extraordinary. Imagine yourself standing by the ocean at night. The sky is dark, the waves steady, rolling in and out with a slow, familiar rhythm. At first, everything appears calm. But then, as the water moves, you notice something unusual. A faint glow begins to appear. Each wave that breaks against the shore carries with it a soft, blue light, flickering gently in the darkness. If you step closer, you might see it more clearly. Tiny sparks, like scattered stars, swirling in the water. This is bioluminescence, caused by microscopic organisms called plankton. When disturbed by movement, they produce light through a chemical reaction. It is not for beauty, though it appears that way. In many cases, it is a defense mechanism, startling predators or signaling danger. And yet, from where you stand, it feels almost like the ocean is quietly breathing light into the night. There is something calming in this image. Light appearing not from above, but from below, soft, temporary, and completely natural. Now, let your surroundings shift. You find yourself in a vast forest, somewhere deep within the Amazon. The air is warm, filled with the scent of leaves and damp soil. Everything feels alive, layered, and dense. But here, something remarkable is happening, something you cannot see directly. The forest is creating its own rain. Through a process called transpiration, trees release water vapor into the atmosphere. This moisture rises, gathers, and eventually forms clouds. Over time, these clouds return the water back to the forest as rain, continuing the cycle. It is not a simple process, and scientists are still studying the full extent of how it works. But what is clear is that the forest is not just receiving water, it is actively participating in its creation. A quiet cycle. A steady exchange. If you pause here, you might begin to feel a sense of balance in this idea. The forest gives, and the forest receives. Now, imagine a different landscape entirely. You are standing in a vast desert, the Sahara. Endless stretches of sand reach toward the horizon, shaped by wind, dry and still. It feels timeless, unchanging. But this was not always the case. Thousands of years ago, this same region was green. Rivers flowed through it. Plants grew, and animals lived where now there is only dry land. Over time, shifts in climate gradually transformed the environment into what you see today. It did not happen all at once. There was no sudden moment of change. Just a slow transition, unfolding over generations, until the landscape became something entirely different. It is a quiet reminder that even the most stable places are part of a larger story. Nothing is truly permanent. And then, as you continue, your attention turns to the sky. High above, birds move across vast distances, migrating from one place to another with remarkable accuracy. Some travel thousands of kilometers, returning to the same locations year after year. What guides them is not something you can easily see. Many species of birds can sense the Earth's magnetic field. It acts like a kind of internal compass, helping them navigate even when there are no visible landmarks. The mechanism is still being studied, and not everything is fully understood. But the result is clear: precise, consistent movement across immense distances. They do not hesitate. They simply follow a path that feels, to them, natural. As you take in these different moments, the glowing ocean, the breathing forest, the shifting desert, the migrating birds, you may begin to notice a pattern. The Earth is not just a stage where life exists. It is part of the process itself. It shapes life, and life, in turn, shapes it. There is a quiet exchange happening everywhere. Water moves from land to sky and back again. Light appears and disappears. Landscapes transform over time. Living beings respond, adapt, and continue. It is not chaotic. It is not random. It is a system, complex, yes, but also balanced in ways that often go unnoticed. And perhaps there is something deeply calming in that, because it suggests that change is not something to fear, but something that has always been part of the world. Slow, steady, sometimes invisible, but always present. If you sit with that idea for a moment, you may begin to feel a sense of quiet trust. The world has been changing, adapting, and continuing for far longer than you have been here. And it will continue. But even with all of these patterns, all of these systems, there is still a deeper question waiting beneath the surface. Where did all of this begin? How did life first appear? And how has it managed to continue through so many changes? And as you move forward, you may begin to explore that question, gently, slowly, tracing the origins of life itself. As you move a little deeper into this quiet exploration, the question begins to form more clearly. Where did all of this begin? The forests, the oceans, the creatures that glow, adapt, and connect. None of them appeared suddenly. They are the result of a very long story, one that stretches back billions of years, far beyond anything you can easily imagine. To begin, you gently drift back in time. The Earth is young, very different from the world you know now. The surface is harsh, unstable, shaped by volcanic activity and constant change. The air is thick, lacking the oxygen you rely on today. There are no forests, no animals, no familiar sounds. Only heat, movement, and vast, empty oceans. And yet, within these early oceans, something begins. Scientists believe that life may have started here, possibly near deep-sea hydrothermal vents, places where heated water rises from beneath the ocean floor, carrying minerals and energy. In these dark, high-pressure environments, simple molecules may have combined, forming the first building blocks of life. It is not a complete story. Many details are still uncertain, and different theories continue to be explored. But the idea remains steady. Life likely began in water, slowly, quietly, through processes that took an immense amount of time. There was no single moment where life suddenly appeared. Just gradual change, step by step. The earliest forms of life were incredibly simple, single-celled organisms, small and invisible. They did not think, move in complex ways, or interact as larger creatures do. But they had one important quality: they could replicate. And that was enough. Over time, these simple organisms spread, adapted, and evolved. Some began to use sunlight as a source of energy, developing a process you now know as photosynthesis. As a result, they released oxygen into the atmosphere. At first, this was not a positive change. For many existing organisms, oxygen was toxic. As it accumulated, it led to what is known as the Great Oxygenation Event, one of the earliest mass extinctions. Many forms of life could not survive the new conditions. But once again, life adapted. New organisms evolved that could use oxygen instead of being harmed by it. And over time, oxygen became a stable and essential part of the atmosphere, making it possible for more complex life to develop. It is a quiet but powerful reminder. Something that once caused destruction eventually became the foundation for growth. As you continue forward in time, life becomes more diverse. Single-celled organisms give rise to multicellular ones. Shapes, forms, and behaviors begin to expand. Slowly, over millions of years, the world becomes more familiar, though still very different from today. Then come moments of disruption. Throughout Earth's history, there have been at least 5 major mass extinction events. During these times, large portions of life disappeared, sometimes very suddenly in geological terms. Causes varied: volcanic eruptions, climate shifts, asteroid impacts. One of the most well-known is the extinction event that ended the age of the dinosaurs, likely triggered by a massive asteroid impact around 66 million years ago. From one perspective, these events might seem like endings. But from another, they are also beginnings. After each extinction, life did not simply stop. It continued. New species emerged, ecosystems reformed, and different forms of life took the place of those that were lost. Mammals, for example, began to expand and diversify after the disappearance of the dinosaurs. The pattern repeats: disruption, adaptation, continuation. There is no urgency in it. No rush to recover. Just slow, steady change over time. If you pause here, you might begin to feel a quiet sense of perspective. Life has faced conditions far more extreme than anything you experience in your daily life. And yet, it continues. Even today, traces of these ancient origins remain within you. Inside your cells, there are structures that were once independent organisms. Mitochondria, for example, are responsible for producing energy within your cells. According to widely accepted scientific theory, they originated as separate bacteria that formed a symbiotic relationship with early cells long ago. Over time, they became a permanent part of the system. So in a very real sense, parts of your body are the result of ancient cooperation, life forms coming together rather than competing. As you sit with this idea, it may begin to feel both distant and deeply personal at the same time. You are connected not only to the present world, but to a history that stretches back billions of years. Every cell in your body carries traces of that long journey, adaptation layered upon adaptation, change built upon change. And yet, the story is not finished. Evolution is not something that only happened in the past. It continues, slowly and quietly, even now. Species adapt to new environments. Small changes accumulate over generations. Life continues to shift, just as it always has. There is no final form, no fixed destination, only movement. And perhaps there is something calming in that thought, because it suggests that change is not a disruption of life, but a natural part of it. Something that has always been present, always shaping what comes next. As you let that idea settle, you may begin to notice something else. All of this, every adaptation, every connection, every shift, has led, in part, to the existence of humans. To you. And as you continue, you may begin to explore what that means, not as something separate from nature, but as something that belongs within it. As you continue this quiet journey, everything slowly begins to come closer, less distant, less abstract. After drifting through oceans, forests, ancient time, and shifting landscapes, you arrive at something familiar. You arrive at yourself. For a long time, it has been easy to think of humans as separate from nature, as observers, as something that stands slightly apart, looking in from the outside. But if you pause for a moment, if you look a little more closely, that idea begins to soften. Because your body is not separate from the natural world. It is part of it, in ways both visible and hidden. Right now, without any effort from you, trillions of cells are working together inside your body. Each one has a role. Some carry oxygen, some send signals, some repair damage. They do not need instructions in the way you might imagine. They simply follow patterns, repeating processes that have been refined over an immense span of time. But you are not made of these cells alone. Alongside them live trillions of microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, and other tiny forms of life. They exist on your skin, in your mouth, and especially within your digestive system. This community is often called the microbiome. At first, it might feel strange to think of your body this way, not as a single, independent being, but as a small ecosystem. But this ecosystem plays an important role in your health. These microorganisms help break down food, support your immune system, and even influence how your body responds to stress. Some studies suggest they may even affect aspects of mood and behavior, though this is still an area of ongoing research. Not everything is fully understood yet, but the connection is clear. You do not exist alone, even within your own body. You are supported by life, just as other forms of life are. If you pause here, you might begin to feel a quiet shift in perspective. The idea of being one becomes something more layered, something more connected. And if you look even deeper, beyond biology, the connection continues. The atoms that form your body, every small piece of you, were not created here on Earth. Long ago, before this planet even existed, stars burned through their life cycles, forming heavier elements through intense pressure and heat. When those stars reached the end of their lives, they released those elements into space. Over time, those particles came together, eventually forming planets, oceans, and life, including you. It is not something you can feel directly. There is no sensation of it. But it is a quiet truth. You are, in a very real sense, made from the remnants of ancient stars. Sometimes people describe this idea by saying you are made of stardust. It may sound poetic, but it is also grounded in science. And perhaps there is something calming in that thought, because it places you not at the edge of nature, but deep within it, connected not only to the earth, but to the universe itself. As you sit with this idea, you may begin to notice something else. Your daily life, even in its simplest moments, reflects patterns that exist throughout nature. You rest and wake, much like cycles of light and darkness. You adapt to your environment, sometimes without even realizing it. You respond to changes, slowly adjusting over time. These are not separate from the natural world. They are part of the same flow. And yet, there is also something unique about humans. You have the ability to observe, to reflect, to question, to understand these connections in a conscious way. You can look at a forest and recognize not just trees, but a system. You can look at the ocean and understand not just water, but life within it. This awareness does not separate you from nature. In a quiet way, it brings you closer to it. Because understanding often leads to appreciation. And appreciation can lead to care. The more you notice how connected everything is, the way life adapts, supports, and depends on itself, the more natural it feels to protect it. Not out of obligation, but out of recognition. You are part of the same system. The air you breathe, the food you eat, the water you drink, all of it comes from the same interconnected processes you have been exploring. There is no clear boundary where you end and nature begins. It is all part of the same story. And perhaps, as you let that idea settle, there is a sense of quiet comfort in it. You are not separate. You are not outside of this vast system. You belong within it, just as everything else does. There is no need to rush, no need to fully understand everything at once. Just noticing is enough. Because sometimes, simply recognizing your place in the world, your connection to everything around you, is enough to change how that world feels. Softer, more meaningful, a little more connected. And as this journey slowly comes to a close, there is just one more step, a gentle moment to gather everything you have seen, and let it settle into something calm and complete. And now, everything begins to soften. You have moved, slowly and gently, through many layers of this world. From the smallest forms of life to vast ecosystems, from ancient oceans to the quiet systems within your own body. And through it all, one idea has quietly stayed with you. Nothing exists alone. Life adapts, connects, and continues, often in ways that are easy to miss. Creatures survive in conditions that seem impossible. Forests share and support beneath the surface. Oceans glow, deserts change, and life itself reshapes again and again over time. It is not loud. It does not ask for attention. It simply happens. And within that, there is something steady. The Earth is not just a place where life exists. It is a system where everything is part of something larger, moving together, adjusting together, continuing together. And you are part of that system. Not separate from it, but within it. Your body carries the same patterns you have seen: balance, cooperation, quiet resilience. You are made of living cells, supported by unseen organisms, shaped by processes that began long before you were here. Even the smallest parts of you trace back to something ancient. In that sense, you are not just living on Earth. You are a small expression of it. And perhaps, as you sit with that idea, there is a kind of calm in it. A feeling that you belong exactly where you are, within a system that has always been changing, always continuing. There is no need to understand everything all at once. No need to hold on to every detail. Just a quiet awareness is enough. Because sometimes, simply seeing the world a little differently can change how it feels. The ground beneath you becomes more than just ground. The air becomes more than just air. Life becomes more than something you observe. It becomes something you are part of. And that understanding does not need to be heavy. It can be light, almost effortless. Just noticing is enough. So as this journey comes to a close, you can let everything settle. No rush, no pressure, just a quiet space where these ideas can rest. And maybe, later on, in an ordinary moment, something will feel slightly different. A little more connected. A little more alive. Take one last slow breath in. And let it out gently. The world continues, as it always has. And you, quietly, continue with it.